Man, very important topic.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, it's an issue, but here's a stat a lot of people don't know. Only 1% of blacks overall in this country commit violent crimes in a given year. So, in your opinion, why do we hear so much about black on black crime? Why is that term thrown out there so much?
I think the term black on black crime is here just to scare society and the public and make them fearful of African Americans or black people. As you said, 1% are violent offenders, and even when we categorize people as a gang member or categorize them as a thug or an inmate or something like that, we're making sure society understands they're not like us. So black on black crime is just another way of telling society they're not like us.
And that's important too, because you think about it, like Donny said, 92% of black on black crime against black people are committed by black people, violent crimes. But in other nationalities, other cultures, you kill basically who you know, or you commit crimes against people who you know. Why don't we hear about white on white crime? Why don't we hear about Asian on Asian crime?
So I work inside of a prison, kind of local here, and 80% of the inmates there have killed someone they knew. And over 50% have murdered people who they loved, whether it was their spouse, their child, or something like that. So that's what happens. You know, the next argument, I guarantee you, I'm not your psychic friend, but I guarantee you the next argument you have is going to be with someone you love. It's random that we have random violence. What happens is someone makes me mad, and it's the someone who is the closest to me, the someone who I've allowed to enter my space, and it's then how do I deal with my anger and emotions? And a lot of times it's negative or it's violent, no matter what the race is.
But we cannot say, and we're not going to try and spell that there isn't an issue. No matter what other people are throwing out there, whether it be the media, whether it be other races, or whatever, to try and make this a propaganda, there still is some issues in our community when it comes to us hurting one another. So regardless, if we were here on this earth by ourselves and we're killing one another or we're committing crimes against one another, and it's at a high rate, especially in cities like Chicago, we hear about it all the time, in the inner city, there are issues that we need to address. But do you think in a way we've kind of become numb to that?
When you talk about Chicago, no. They're spending a lot of money. There's a lot of efforts to reduce the violence. Even though it hasn't been working, it doesn't take away from their efforts. Here in Los Angeles, our efforts have proven to be effective. You know, with over 4 million people in the city of LA, we're at the lowest. You know, each year we keep experiences the lowest number of homicides, whether it's black on black, Latino versus Latino, whatever. We're down now to right now in South LA, 84 homicides. And that's from the 10 freeway all the way to the harbor. So imagine that 84 homicides could be done in the summer in 77 Division back in the early 90s. Well, late 80s, early 90s. We could have did 84 just during the summertime. So to say that that whole area has 84 right now is, I mean, I want to clap, but there's 84 families who are ill affected by it. So the ultimate goal is 0, but when we have 4.4 million people and we're at about 230 homicides for this year in the city of LA, that's all the way from Canoga Park, Reseda, all the way to the harbor. You know, I have to say that it's been a lot done to reduce that.
But when one of our black people get killed, it's too many.
Too many.
It's one
so
too many.
It's one too many.
Right.
So how do we stop the stereotype about us killing each other, and what are we gonna do to get to the little shorties so they can stop the gang violence, because there is gang violence.
Not necessarily. Most of the violence now, gang violence has been reduced. So there is a lot of gang violence. There was a homicide this weekend, gang violence. However, it's not always gang violence. So the gang violence is down. It's how do I deal with my anger and emotion? So hurt people, no matter what gang you're from. You know, and when the Crips kill the Crips and the Bloods kill the Bloods, it's not really gang violence. It's hurt people who hurt people, whether it's involving a girl, whether it's involving a car, money. It's based on individuals and how they feel. You know, if they got a bad spirit, like for example, if I got a bad spirit and I'm not feeling good today, and you owe me money or you do something to me, I'm gonna answer violently. But if life is good, I got a good job, a good wife, everything's going good, and you owe me money or you do something to harm me, I'm gonna give you a pass. So we have to stop and look at what is the underlying issue for that person. Each and every individual has to check their own spirit because, I mean, all of us are probably seconds away from the next fight based on how I feel about myself.
But
How do
Skip,
you feel?
here's the thing, and I love what you said there, but we're still dying.
Yeah.
We still have issues in our community. Once again, I'm not even looking at what's going on in the white communities and the Jewish communities, Asian communities. I'm looking at what's happening with us. And I understand what you're saying when it comes to the gang violence may be down, but when there's gang violence, and maybe talk to me and tell me if I'm wrong, when there's gang violence, it's usually not just me killing you, it's me killing you, your homeboy, and anybody else that's around. And I'm not just trying to blame the gangs, but that's usually the issue. And that's why I think gang violence probably gets such a bad rap, is because when it happens to multiple victims.
Right. So I agree with you that when we talk about gang violence, but most of the violence here lately, when we say gang violence, we talk about retaliation. So if one of us hurt each other, then there's a retaliation by the neighborhoods. But that's not happening anymore. A lot of the violence is one-type incidents, and there's more people talking about peace than there is talking about violence now. So that's why I say it's reducing. And it's not just guys as old as me, it's people in their 30s who are talking about peace now. So what happens is there's violence. We have to address violence. If I look at gang violence, then I'm going to miss a bigger picture. And the bigger picture is, how do I help people deal with their emotions, their anger, and the things that are going on? Because just imagine this, it's not really so much a gang, is this guy eating? Is he living, the quality of life he'd like to live? Can he read? Does he have an employment? Or even the young ladies, we got to stop and think about what are some of the underlying issues. There's young people who haven't seen their parents. Mm-hmm. A young man lives in foster care, says his mom lives down the street. So we have to stop and think, like, maybe he's a minute or two away from hurting someone.
So you're saying we need better resources in the neighborhoods? Is that what you're saying?
We need better resources, and we need to address the underlying issues. See, it's easy to see what somebody's running to, but can we identify what they're running from? That's what's going to stop the violence.
So you think it's like the socioeconomic situations,
education?
How do we do that though? I mean, like, is it more resources? Do we need help from the government? Do we need help more from the state and local governments? How do we do that?
I don't think so. I personally don't ask for help from the government. I think as African-American men, as black men and women, we need to spend more time with our children, our grandchildren, and the neighbors. We need to be more involved in our community, is what I would say, is that everyone needs to have, because we're not role models, we're real models. We walk up and down these streets. Someone wants to be like you, Donnie. Whether you notice it or not, there's some little kid on your block or the apartment building down the street is watching you every day saying, man, I want a sweatsuit that got Skip Townsend on it, just like he is. So we have to stop and identify that. And who am I a real model to? And if I act in a violent manner, someone's going to gravitate to that. And if I act calmly and collectively and I'm taking care of business, someone's going to respect that as well. But we have to be the ones to reach out to make our community safe.
But Skip, we got to get to the real issue. Our people be acting crazy. You know what I mean? So we can sugarcoat it. Gang violence is real. It's real right now, and we have to see how are we going to solve the problem in the neighborhoods, because it's still going on. It's still shootings going on. Yes. And then with this social media, these new age gangbangers, I call them millennial gangbangers.
Millennial. Explain that though. What does that mean?
Oh my God!
How has it changed over the years?
Skip, you know how it changed.
Yeah, so they're not writing on the walls, they're writing on social media.
So they're threatening one another on social media.
Oh, man, they're the hardest guy on Instagram. Yeah. Man, they take their shirt off and they filming themselves on Instagram, Facebook, and they don't come outside, but they're the hardest thing with their shirt off, got tattoos everywhere. And they make believe that there's someone.
Exactly. You're talking about the role models or whatever. Sometimes we talked about this the other night, about how some celebrities, once they get out of a certain neighborhood or whatever, they still have that certain mentality, and people look up to that. So we talk about the role models. Is it imperative on some of these guys, once they get out, to understand that, you got kids who are looking up to you, and they know that you came out of that same neighborhood, and they want to be like you. So if you're out there putting out there and promoting that street culture, that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, so I think that every artist has an obligation to society to make the quality of life better.
Exactly.
So whatever they can use their influence to help others not go through all these issues that we're talking about, I think that's what's needed.